All right, so first of all, state who you are.
I'm Keith Dahlby.
And you're one of the, what, 3 or 4 Iowans that came up this time, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think 4 presenters from Iowa this time.
Yeah. We haven't had those in a little while, so it's good to see them coming back up. And I think this is your first or second time talking here?
This is actually, I think, my third.
Third, really?
F sharp 1 year ago.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And what do you...
Go very well.
Yeah, well, we have this one now to look forward to.
Yes.
And you're doing yours next, or is it last?
Next.
Next, okay. And what is it?
Dynamic.net Demystified.
And can you demystify what that actually means?
So dynamic as opposed to static for the typing of languages. So C# has been statically typed since inception, meaning that when I have a variable x and I do x dot toString, then it knows the type of x and it knows what toString method is being called. Dynamic, on the other hand, is we're just going to basically assume that at runtime there will be a toString method on that object that I can call.
Okay.
So C# has added some new features on top of the dynamic language runtime that allow you to do some interesting new things.
Okay. Some people that might be working in C# specifically, I don't know so much about VB, but they might have come from the VB world, where there's this thing called variant.
Yes.
And they get really freaked out because they're like, oh, it's just an object. Oh, it's going to be slow. It's not going to be performant. Yeah. What would you say to that?
So it's not really variant, and I mean the biggest concern that most people have is just the performance. And they put a lot of effort into doing a number of different things, call site caching and various other basically mechanisms to say once we've parsed through this code, we can make a pretty good guess that the next time we try the same method on the same object, that it's going to need to execute the same steps, and so it can cache those kind of operations. That processing goes in the first time, and after that it's pretty close to the static.
Are those the call sites?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Call site caching.
What kind of oddities can you run into when you start saying like dynamic x equals something, and then you start using it? What are some of the potentially weird things that you've seen that you can run into?
Well, I mean, the biggest weirdness is just, if you're used to static typing, then it's going to be strange that you don't get IntelliSense. I mean, it's just a different development experience, but I mean, people don't have problems doing JavaScript. It's really the same idea.
Now, that brings up a good point, because when you said that you lose IntelliSense, that's true. But they've also been making a push, they being Microsoft, that when you go into JavaScript, then now you suddenly do have IntelliSense. So why the discrepancy? Why the mismatch? Because if they can do that in a dynamic language like JavaScript, why not C# with the word dynamic?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest issue just there is that the JavaScript IntelliSense is within a JavaScript context. When we're in C# dealing with dynamic stuff, a lot of the time we don't know where that thing came from. If I'm calling into some API that just returns a dynamic, or maybe it's a COM API, and it's returning a dynamic and I don't know what that is, then it's really hard for me without doing some sort of actually, more or less running that code at, within the IDE there to try and figure it out. And there are ways that you can do that. That's really what they're doing with JavaScript. They just bring up that JavaScript runtime just kind of in the background, and then based on that they say, all right, well at this point you have objects X, Y, and Z, and they have properties A, B, and C.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.